as well as thank you for to the Commonwealth Seminar for having me moderate this panel. I'm very excited about tonight. Tonight's panel has three next generation powerhouses, in my opinion, in the activism field, and I cannot wait to get into these conversations we will have today. Before I let them introduce myself, my name is Brooke to some, but Kamulani to most. I am a mixed Native Hawaiian, and I just recently graduated the Commonwealth Seminar this fall 2020 session. I am the part-time Western Mass Coordinator for the Massachusetts Asian American Commission, and I am also a third grade teacher at Springfield Prep Charter School in Springfield, Massachusetts. Hence explains the background behind me as I am teaching fully remote. I would now love to immediately dive into the introductions of our panelists. We have Carlos Prudencio, who is a senior at Lynn English High School, Ayana Henry, who is a freshman at Boston College, and Sheila Vo, who is a recent grad from UMass Lowell, and she also works alongside me at the Massachusetts Asian American Commission as the Marketing and Communications Coordinator. I'm going to first pass it off to Carlos to give more of an intro, because I am sure all of our panelists have way more great things to share about themselves.
So, for those who don't know me, I'm Carlos. Like I said, I am a senior at Lynn English High School, so I'm here in Lynn, Mass. And I'm very active in my community. I love to be active. I love to do things within the community. I'm very much a people's person. So throughout Corona, it's been very different and weird, not interacting with so many people. But I'm involved in a lot of things, human rights, education, doing some things at Salvation Army more recently, and some Black Lives Matter projects. So, I'm kind of versatile in different fields. And I'm sure I'll talk about it a little more.
Thanks, Carlos. Ayana, if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit more.
Sure. So my name is Ayana Henry, and I graduated the Commonwealth Seminar in the fall of 2017. So it's been 3 years already. And I'm currently a freshman at Boston College. I'm hoping to study environmental studies and public health. And I look at I've been volunteering as an ESL teacher for a little bit over 2 years before the virus happened. And also I'm part of another community project called Cody's Kids that helps youth to use their time well and stay out of trouble. And I've traveled around the country for different social activism and programs just to learn more about how I can be a better activist in my community. And I was also able to go to Guatemala for a service learning program, which was very amazing. I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to do something like that. I'm not sure where. So that's just a little bit about me. Thank you.
Well, that's amazing. Lastly, Sheila Vo, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, so hi everyone, my name is Sheila Vo. I am a proud Vietnamese American woman. I studied graphic design when I attended UMass Lowell, and I also graduated in 2019. But part of my purpose is using my abilities as an artist and creator to uplift voices within the BIPOC community, and I find that very rewarding. I also volunteer when I'm not working at the Asian American Commission. I am volunteering for the I Am Not a Virus campaign, which condemns anti-Asian sentiment throughout the whole world. And I also volunteer for the NAACP Merrimack Valley chapter.
Awesome. Thank you for all of your introductions and for sharing who you are. I'm sure the audience agrees with me with how impressive your repertoire is based on everything that you have done. And I would love to dive into the first question. Before I do that, I want to remind everyone that feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions in regards to anything the panelists are saying. I will be happy to address them. So the first question for tonight is, how did you get into activism? And I'm going to start with Ayana. How did you get into activism?
Well, I like to think of activism as a state of mind. So I've always wanted to help people, and I never really knew how to do that. And after the 2016 elections, I really felt that it was the time to get involved. So I started to volunteer as an ESL teacher at a local church in my community on the weekends. And I wanted to help immigrants, and particularly the people who were being portrayed in a very negative light. I wanted to help them see America as their home, and understand that not everyone in America hated them, and that there were people who were Americans that looked like them. And during that same time, I participated in the Commonwealth seminar, and from there, I kind of sprung off into more activism work. But I really do look at the election and the Commonwealth seminar as the beginning of my journey in activism. So yes.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. And as a teacher myself, I know how crucial it is to have ESL teachers in the educational field. So major kudos to you for volunteering and being a part of that. I'm going to pass it over to Sheila. Same question. How did you get into activism?
I actually got into activism my senior year of college. I came up with my senior capstone project called Generation Yellow. And the project stressed the importance of finding one's identity and emphasizing empathy with others through learning the past and present history of AAPI, the AAPI community in particular, but it also stressed the importance of all minorities trying to figure out what US history has hidden from them, and to really embrace our differences, to come together and realize that we are more similar than we are different. And from that project, I didn't really want to follow into the path of a typical designer, because usually designers out of school work for corporate, and they kind of, I don't want to say sell their souls, but they are very limited to what they can do within their own community, because they're so passionate about doing one particular thing for one certain cause. But so I took a year off, and I came across a job, an internship posting for the Asian American Commission. And I was just like, this is it. This is this is everything that I believe in. So I applied, I got it. And my first day was actually the first day I met Leverett. And this is very significant, because this was the first day that I finally felt like I was on the right path to doing what I actually want. And I pitched my Generation Yellow idea to Jenny Chang and also Jay Wong, and they saw my potential and my passion, and they decided to give me a chance. So when I met Leverett and I met Jay and Jenny for the first time on the steps of the State House at the press conference condemning anti-Asian racism in front of like a lot of people, I was very overwhelmed, but seeing the feedback that people were able to give us meant something to me, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And since then, it's been a great journey. Like, I've been able to graduate from the Commonwealth Seminar this year, and certain opportunities come your way once you know your passion, but also you live in your passion as well.
Thank you, Sheila. For those in the audience who don't know, there was a press conference addressing Asian racism. And the picture has gone super viral. So I highly recommend you check that out. Now passing it over to Carlos. Same question, how did you get into activism yourself?
Yeah, so Ayana and Sheila, really powerful stories so far. Um, so my activism started about my sophomore year, so I'm a senior now. So just about 2-ish years ago, a nonprofit called the Global Embassy for Activists of Peace came into my school, and they did a workshop about human rights, and they used the um, Holocaust as a basis to explain human rights and how they came from, and um, that they needed volunteers. So I thought I would get my hours out of the way for college, and I was like, cool. And then every Tuesday we had these meetings. We sat down, we talked about it, and we actually the same workshops I participated in. I started to be there as a facilitator, and I learned more about human rights. And then we saw how in Lynn there's a lack of knowledge of how human rights works and what they actually are. Um, so myself, my friends, and my mentor, uh, said, we all sat down. We were like, so how do you educate a bunch of high school kids on human rights? Um, so we were like, why don't we just put it into the curriculum? So we drafted this proposal. We gave it to the school committee, superintendent, and the curriculum department, and we started working on how to implement human rights curriculum into Lynn public schools. And it's not until this summer, that it was said, we'll put it in a class. So there is now a class, to my knowledge, at each high school for human rights, which is great. We're still working on expanding that a bigger. But obviously, between that time that happened, there was a lot of space in between. So with the embassy, I just got involved a little more, and then election season happened around here in Lynn, so I decided to just poke my head out and see what was happening. And that was it was all right. It was cool. But from there, I met a lot of great people in the community, and I brought in some people. Damiani, who's in this call, I brought her in to do some community work, and now she is right beside me doing some other projects right now, and keeps me very much sane. So that's how I kind of got wrapped in all of this.
I love how you fought for an implementation of a human rights curriculum into the education field, because it's a very important thing that schools should be addressing. So kudos to you, and I hope that spreads like wildfire. We're gonna dive in a little deeper, and I know all of you have touched base on this a little bit, but I want you to kind of share a little bit more about what inspires you and what drove you to be a part of activism. And I'm going to start with Sheila. Go for it.
So this is going to sound really corny, but I have a board that has positive affirmations on them, and I say them every day. But I have 2 to share with you guys today that is relevant to this talk. And one of them is be the person you needed when you were younger. And if somebody had told me when I was a kid that my facial features and the way that I celebrated my culture was beautiful, then I would have found the confidence to do what I'm doing now at an earlier age, but also just be confident in my own identity. Part of the reason why I came up with that senior capstone project was because I felt cheated by the education system. And I say that because it took 20 years to figure out and come to terms with my identity once I took Asian American Studies in college, and once I joined the cultural clubs in college. So, and they don't stress the importance of that at all in middle school or in high school. So I think all of those resources should be available to our youth at an earlier age. What else? The second one is stand in your truth and your values. Due to the fact of quarantine, I've been very mindful of who I surround myself with and who I choose to express energy towards, and I feel very grateful to go into work every day being surrounded by very strong women that encourage me to be myself, but also they also uplift me in ways that I was never used to as a kid. So that's very nice. And I also experience that when I go into my volunteer groups. It's nice to know that there's still hope in humanity after all that's happened this year. And that's something that I hold dear to me. And what drives me? I am driven by constantly trying to reinvent the wheel in some sort of way. I'm the type of person that doesn't like to stay comfortable in situations. So I'll either learn a new skill, talk to different people, gain experience from different perspectives. That's one of the main reasons why I wanted to take the Commonwealth Seminar class, was to just learn from others. And yeah, that's all for me.
I love that you touched base on mindfulness, because I feel like that is very important, especially in the time that we're in, and we're going to kind of go over that a little bit later. I'm gonna turn to Carlos. What inspires you and what drove you? I know you touched base on it a little bit, but I would love for you to dive a little deeper.
So what inspires me and what drives me? Honestly, it's the people that I interact with and that I do my work with. So none of anything that I have done ever has been by myself. It's been done with other people. So us doing the work that we do, you know, there, it's the energy of the people that I work with. So, you know, when I want to get something done and other people around me are like, yeah, let's get this done, you know, it is much easier for me to be like, okay, yeah, let's get going. So that's my drive. As long as people are with me, you know, I can do, you know, anything. And to Sheila's point, to sticking with your values, as long as it also sticks with my values and what I believe in, and then I think, you know, that is also a focus point, is, you know, how I continue forward. But it's all about the people, man. Like, you know, all, you know, whether it's, you know, like Dami, who's literally with me 24/7, and, you know, talking about like how, you know, to get things done and really doing the work behind, or it's, you know, people on Facebook saying like, good job. It keeps me going. You know, it's being here and explaining this to everybody that keeps me going, because we can inspire somebody else.
Oh yeah,
Wonderful friend Josie Santos just joined. And she's actually a key player to keeping me going. She sees a lot of the work that, you know, we all do, and, you know, she's definitely very encouraging. So I want to say the drive behind my activism is the people that I'm with.
Awesome. And yeah, having a team is so important, and a support system is very crucial to especially activism work. Lastly, Ayana, I would love for you to answer this question as well. What inspires you and what has driven you towards activism?
So something that inspires me is looking at history, I would say. From a very young age, my father exposed my siblings and I to civil rights documentaries, and he would read books to us, excerpts from writers such as Frederick Douglass, and other great abolitionists and activists. And those have always really inspired me, even when I think I was too young to actually do anything. Um, Something that drives me is, I guess, one, I want to be the change that I want to see. So I guess I think about what I can do in order to be that change, in order to change things, not just to say things need to change, but to actually think about what I can do to help things change. And then the realization that I have privilege. I acknowledge that there are disadvantages that I have, challenges that I face, but I also know that I do have privilege in terms of my ability to receive an education, and to have a house, to have a home, and it in a way that drives me forward, because I know that I have to do something with the privilege that I'm given. It's not just for me, it's to help others. And that's really my purpose for activism, for going to school. I tell my sister, if there's a way for me to live life without going to college, I would do it. But I know for what I want to do to help people, that's not possible. So I guess, yes, realizing that I have privilege and wanting to help people, that's really what drives me forward, yes.
Amazing. I love how you talked about history. History is very important. And I think from those three answers, that's already inspired me, and I'm sure it's inspired a lot of people in the audience for their future endeavors in activism. I know Sheila touched base on this a little bit, and the next question is sort of towards this current time that we're in. And I wanted to ask our panelists, how has activism changed during COVID-19 in your eyes? And I would love to start with Carlos to first address that question.
It's more virtual. So there's a lot of outreach, through social media, and spreading our message that way, which is the safest way. But in all honesty, in my case, activism hasn't really changed much. So through March and June, Dami and I were at Salvation Army here in Lynn, making food boxes for people here in Lynn, but also for surrounding communities. So that was, at the height of Corona, inside not a confined space, but a, one place where there were about, I don't know, 10 of us working each day, the same people, but, that was a constant, like, in and out every day. So we were, out there, being as safe as we could be, but obviously in the midst of a pandemic, it's still a little dangerous. And then recently with our work with Black Lives Matter, we've been getting the word out through social media, but we have been attending protests, and we have been having some meetings explaining why we're doing the work that we are. So I suppose that there's a big social media push, but in my case, activism has stayed kind of constant. But there are some things that we are limited to, and we've had to work around. But it kind of all works together. That's how it's kind of changed. I don't know if that makes sense for anybody in this call, but let me know if it doesn't.
No, that totally made sense to me. Some activism, doesn't stop or doesn't change in a pandemic. You kind of have to keep pushing forward, especially for the very pressing matters that are, in society today and even in our future. Ayana, I wanted to ask you next the same question and see if you have some similarities in regards to what Carlos has said.
So yes, I definitely agree with what Carlos said. I do feel as though because of the virus, there is a bigger push for, well, social media has become more focal in activism, and even in my opinion, more important because people aren't able to gather in large groups safely or often. Social media can reach an equal amount of people without them all having to be in one place. And I think we saw that over the summer with the awareness that was spread for the different murders that happened. And through social media, people from all around the world were able to see that. I also think that for me, social justice has changed in the sense that it's become a lot more personal. So because I can't be out and about as much, I'm much more willing to have talks with people who I know one-on-one, whether that's people I come in contact with or friends, emails. So I feel as though social media has, I think, social justice has hit closer to home. So I think that that's interesting, but I do acknowledge too that social media had a big role in that, in raising people's awareness to be willing to have those conversations. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I think social media has played a very huge role, and this is such a great segue to Sheila because she's the marketing and communications coordinator at the Asian American Commission. So I would love for Sheila to kind of dive into that same question, but in your lens, especially with the background that you have and the role that you have, do you agree with what the other panelists have been saying in regards to social media playing a huge role?
Yes, 100%. Part of my job requires me to come up with different infographics, but trying to present it in a way that is straight to the point for our viewers and very quick because our attention spans are so short nowadays. But finding and researching ways I could captivate audiences, but also encourage them to continue learning is the challenge right now. And I think COVID has made people reconsider also what an activist really is, because I see all the time that there are people that share a lot of infographics. And although that is great, I love that people are doing that. Going to my previous point of how to take things one step further, I would like to challenge people that do share infographics. What are you going to do after you share that infographic? Are you just going to call it a day and that's your activism? Or do you have the capacity to expand your mind and provide your talents to something that needs your help? Like there's a bunch of nonprofit organizations that need volunteer help right now, as well as, what is it? I forget. Like, could you attend a protest if you are safe to do so? Can you have more conversations with your friends and family, like Ayana said? But really redefining what it means to be an activist, because for me, when I was a kid, I thought to be an activist, you had to be this loud person that was extroverted, that attended protests. But now I am more open to the fact that you can be an activist, but also behind the scenes at the same time. As long as your intentions are there and you're putting in the work, then that could be your activism.
Very powerful words from all three of our panelists. Just snaps, kudos to you guys. I want to kind of ask you guys, what are your future plans in your activism, but also in your life? I know you've shared some about your jobs and your future, what you are going to be majoring in, but I would love it for you to be a little less humble about yourselves and share what kind of future goals you have for yourselves. And I'm going to start with Ayana.
Well, I'm not completely sure exactly what I will be doing in the future. I know that I want to help people, but there are many ways to help people. When I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and then I realized that I wanted to pursue public health, and that might change. I just want to pursue a field or be in a position to help people the best way that I know how to. I'm hoping to do some study abroad projects while in college and some service learning trips, and maybe that will help me to find my path. But honestly, I'm not completely sure exactly what the future holds for me. And I think that's what makes it exciting. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. I also want to name that, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. So having that answer of being like, whatever the future has for me is also exciting. It's great. So thank you for naming that. I would love to ask Sheila, what are your future plans?
I have a lot. um, so to start, I would love, my dream is to design ethnic studies curriculums for students. And the way that I think about it is lectures, and the way that we're learning right now through lectures and PowerPoints isn't going to be a thing in the future. Like our retention rate is not, well, the attention of students isn't going to be focused on the ways of learning that we are learning right now. So sorry, I just got blindsided for a second. But another dream of mine is to design for museums. And I've also thought about going to film school because I really believe that BIPOC need to tell their own stories, and I find documentaries to be very captivating, and I would like to be behind the camera in some sort of way. And eventually I would like to become a teacher at some point in my life to really share the knowledge that I've learned thus far, or whenever I decide to be a teacher. But I've also thought about becoming a Buddhist nun. So the options are endless, and life doesn't always go according to plan, which I've learned. So I'm excited.
Oh, many great possibilities. I love how you guys are really going into being like, the future has so many different opportunities, and that is such a great way to look at it. Finishing off with Carlos, what is your future plans? I know you're a senior in high school. This is, a pivotal moment for you. What do you got going on?
I don't know, just trying to get to college. That's all I'm trying to do right now. Yeah, that's the first step. Go to college. Not for, I mean, I don't know, the world's changing. It's like sometimes you're told, hey, you got to go to college. Sometimes you're told you don't need to go to college. I guess I want to go to college for a more personal reason. I guess it's because, yes, I've been told that, I need to go to college. Education is important. And I have seen that. And I also think that's a way for me to change how education works. So I guess feeding into what I want to do a little later is, I guess, change education and see how that works. And I think higher education, can do that. Because like what Sheila has said and what Ayana has said, they've already just said, like, because they were in college, they had, realizations. They figured things out, and that's a good thing. Now, how do we make that happen in like high school? And it doesn't always have to happen, but like it should happen more often than not. And then Josie and I, who's in this call, joke around a lot how education is first and how education is important. And I do believe that, but I also stem from the idea now that, higher education is not always, needed, but there's a lot. So get an education, go to college, and then I don't know what to do after. Help people like Ayana wants to do. Really the main goal.
And that's a great goal, I would say. It's a very great goal. And I will have to note that all y'all are just so great, and the reasons and the ways that you got to where you are now and your activism is just truly amazing. It really is. Before we get into the last question that I have for our panelists, I wanted to remind the folks that are in the Zoom that to please ask some questions in the chat, and I can be addressing it when we get into our Q&A. It will, if you have a question that, came up across what they've been saying or anything that you would love for them to answer, please put it in the chat. So go for it.
So Ayana told me that she actually realized that, she was already a boss and doing, cool stuff already, and that she was dope already in high school, which is true, because we just heard what she had to say this entire time. So I wanted to correct myself. She just got into college. She was already like, I know what I need to do. She was already being, dope. So I wanted to acknowledge that.
Okay, giving some shine to Ayana. Love that. All right, to this last question. This last question is just advice for young folks that want to start being an activist, but are unsure of what to do first. I will mention that when I was in high school, I for sure was not one of these amazing activists that are on the panel. I would have loved to be, but I didn't know how to start. So what advice would you give to young folks who would want to be an activist but have no idea of where to start? I'm going to start with Sheila with that question.
If I was talking to little Sheila, I would tell her to not be afraid to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. But to also be mindful that everyone's journey is different. Although it's nice to have role models, it doesn't mean that, or paths, like a pathway to learning or a pathway to a career. It's okay to not be at a certain level compared to another person. I think it's best if you go at your own pace. I also recommend to do your research. What I like to do, I have a bullet journal, and I have a list of the things that I like and the things that I don't like. And seeing it on paper is very helpful because it narrows down like what you actually like. But like I said before, surrounding yourself with people that have the same vision as you is very helpful. But also, if you do want a mentor or somebody to look up to, I recommend getting a mentor. And right now, I feel like more people are open to helping out because it is a pretty tough time. So take advantage of that. And also take advantage of free opportunities that are going on in your community, but that also takes research as well. That's all for me.
Awesome. Carlos, would you like to add on to anything Sheila has said?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sorry, my bad.
Just,
So,
answering.
so what advice would you give to young folks that want to start being an activist but are unsure of what to do first?
Sure. I'll agree with the point that Sheila said. If you want a mentor, that's a good place to start. I mean, but I would say to be cautious. We don't always know who we are, but make sure that that person that you're looking up to kind of has that same train of thought as you. Like, I want to do something good. That person seems like she wants to do something good. Let's see what we can, what can happen, what she can, he or she can lead me to. Um, but ask around, be curious, be like, think about what you're interested in, what's a problem, and figure out how you can, mix your interest and, that problem together and, see if there's a solution there. It's much easier to do something that you, uh, like. And also that also means being open-minded. Because kind of like Ayana, how she wanted to be a mechanical engineer, for my entire life, I wanted to be a marine biologist. Then I got into this activism stuff, and I didn't like leave it behind, but I was like, no, this is so much better, and I think I like this a little more. So I also would recommend, being open-minded, see what opportunities are given to you, which Sheila also said.
Awesome. And Ayana, do you want to close us off in what advice you would like to give young folks?
Well, I would tell them to I guess care about people, because activism can look like so many different things, and it doesn't even have to always do with people. For example, you could be a marine biologist who's an activist for the environment. So there's so many possibilities there. And I would just say try new things, try volunteering at different places, and see, I guess, what you're passionate about, and find a mentor, as different people have said. I think those are really all good ideas. Yes.
Amazing. I heard a common theme of having, having a team, having a mentor, doing your research and putting yourself out there. A lot of great advice for
Have
the
a team.
younger
Have
generation.
a team.
Yes, have a
So
team.
find a team, find friends, find a mentor, find whoever you want. Have a team, and yes, have a team.
Yes, have a team, have a squad. It'll be a great support system. Well, thank you so much to the panelists for answering all of these questions that I've come up with. I would love to open it up to the audience. If anyone has a question to ask these amazing powerhouses about their experience, or anything about what it's like to be, the young generation of upcoming activists. You can type it in the chat, you can raise your hand, anything along those lines. There is, thanks, Grace. There's a question in the chat from Grace that is saying, do you have a role model or family member that has really supported you? And what helped the most about that person? If any of the panelists want to jump into that, you can raise your hand, or you can just jump in and go for it. Go for it. Yeah, Ayana.
So this is without a doubt my dad. My dad, he's from Jamaica. He's a first generation college student, and he's definitely someone who I look up to, a role model for me. He supported me tremendously. As a matter of fact, when I took the Commonwealth seminar in 2017, my dad ended up taking it with me, because he was just really involved in and things that I do, and constantly supporting me, to encouraging me to reach outside of my comfort zone and to stand up for what's right. And as I mentioned earlier, since I was very, very, very young, he's introduced my siblings and I to social activism, social justice. And yes, it's definitely my dad, definitely.
Love that. Oh my goodness, that he took the class with you. That is amazing. Any other panelists would like to jump in on that question? Go for it, Sheila.
I want to give a shout out to my team. So growing up, I didn't really have role models that really spoke out that much because I come from a traditional Vietnamese family, and my parents were refugees from Vietnam. And it was very frowned upon to speak out against the government or question authority. So due to intergenerational trauma from the war. And so I remember so when I went to the press conference that day, I came home to my mom, and she asked me, "Are you gonna get arrested now?" And I'm like, "No, Mom, like this is okay." And so she's been super supportive, but I would like to give a shout out to my team. So Brooke, Kamalani, Lily, Jay, and Jenny, who have all just encouraged me to just be the best that I could be. So love you guys.
Heart to you back. Thank you for that shout out. She's also amazing, and she helps, hold our team together. So shout out right back to you, Sheila. Carlos, would you like to add on to that question?
Yeah. A common question that I get is like, so does your mom like do like politics or something? Or is like your dad or anybody in your family? No. So my family is very supportive, and my mom is very proud, at least I think. But my family is supportive, but in terms of was anybody in my family a role model? No. And that's not a bad thing. They were role models in different aspects of my life, work ethic, you know, morality and things of that nature. But throughout my process of being active, I have found, other role models, and, have seen, tons and tons of people who inspire me. And at the seminar, actually, every time I sat at that table, when we sat at tables together, I felt like I was on a dream team. For real. Like it was amazing to see all these people together in one place, and talking, discussing things about government, but the conversations we would have after, talking with Phil J, who's also on this call, was great. And seeing the work that he still does, on Facebook, is crazy. My team as well, Dami, who's on the call, inspiring me, telling me that, we got this, you know, and then Josie, who's on this call. There's a lot of people I know on this call. Wow. Hearing their stories, hearing Josie's stories about, and I was just writing about this, about, her environmental, activism, but, and her works that she did, which she's very humble about, has inspired me. So, I mean, there are different role models kind of everywhere that have come in later in my life, but at a good point where I think I need them the most.
Love that. Going back to, having that team, having that support system. There is another question in the chat, and there are two actually that are kind of along the same line. So I'm going to kind of put them together. But it's very exhausting to do social justice work. And mental health can play a huge role in this with activism and also being stuck at home. So does anyone have any things that they do for self-care, and how do you distract yourself from that chaos?
So I think, do you want to go, Sheila? I'll go, let you go first. Okay, I'll go first. Dami and I are asked this a lot. Like, how do we self-care? And I don't know the answer. It's been 9 months of, going, well, 9 months in Corona time of, going back and forth, up and down. And I don't know if it's the adrenaline that's been in our system 9 months that keeps us going. But we do find the time to like sit down for a second on a Friday or Saturday and just go do something else. If not, we're working on schoolwork, which is another focus we have to do, which just, not distracts us, but, we're on a different topic and we leave social justice on the sidelines for a second. We work. This past month, we had artists here in Lynn that we were working with. So we were with a bunch of, muralists, watching these beautiful murals come to life here in Lynn, which I think is also part of the reason why I don't know what I want to do, because occasionally, I'm like, I want to be a graffiti artist. Let me go out there and make murals. And I have no artistic talent whatsoever. So, but I mean, yeah, we do find the time to just like sit down, watch Netflix, go do something. I also take Taekwondo. So, I mean, kicking a target really helps. So there are a couple ways, but I mean, for me at least, the activism part of my brain never really completely shuts off. And for now, I'm okay with that, and I don't think I have a problem with it. But there are little outlets here and there, a Friday night, a Saturday night Taekwondo class, and little experiences here and there that lets me just calm down for a second.
Amazing. Does anyone else want to jump on to that question?
Yeah, I love this question. I highly recommend whenever you're feeling stressed, what I do is I turn everything off and I just put my earbuds in and I have a dance party in my room for maybe 5 minutes, shake off all that energy, the bad energy. What I also do is I have a timer for social media. I limit myself to spending only 2 hours a day on social media, but also learn to know when you need a break. I turn off my phone. I turn off social media completely on the weekends, and really just getting to know yourself is great self-care as well. What else do I do? Face masks, those are great. What else? Your favorite beverage? Treat yourself to some nice, treat yourself to a little gift every once in a while. It is not bad to be selfish, is all I have to say.
I love that. Not bad to be selfish, especially when it comes to self-care and in activism. Ayana, do you want to share anything that you do?
Well, I guess something in general that I do for self-care. So I'm in school and I get very stressed often now. Similar to what Sheila said, just sort of taking a break from everything. Sometimes I just go on a walk. I just need to be away from everything. Go on a walk, get some exercise. That helps me to jump back into everything. Listening to music helps me a lot. And talking to family members, that can help me a lot. Talking to my sister. Yes, I guess that's what I do for self-care.
I love that. The last question from the audience that we're going to address today is, so for the adults in the class, what can we do better to support you and slash or make sure we are giving you the appropriate space to be who you need to be?
Mm.
Wait, is this to the audience or to the panelists?
To the panelists, sorry.
Oh,
my
okay.
bad.
Okay.
Jill, you gonna go?
No, I'm still thinking. You can go.
So this is by Adriana. Hi, Adriana. Nice to not see you. I mean, you know, Adriana, how I roll, but for the people who are also pondering this, just listen to us, youth. I mean, it's good. Just have a conversation with us. Let us express how we feel, why we feel this way, and see how maybe you can incorporate your help to our cause or our problem. Um, sometimes at least me, as a 17-year-old, our biggest problem is that technically I have no say because I have no vote and things like that. And that's how we feel. Like, I don't have any vote. I don't have, doesn't matter what I say because I can't make a change. And that's not true, but that's not the point of it. The point is that we feel that way. I feel that way. And if you listen to us, you agree with us, and you can, forward that message to, your connections, because everybody has a connection. That I think is one of the best ways that, adults can help us and, in our struggles, and helps us, continue our efforts.
Go for it, Sheila.
I was gonna say that resonates with me a lot because sometimes I feel that I can't say certain things because I don't have seniority, or I am very young compared to the people that I work with. So I think it's very nice if adults or people that have been in an institution or organization longer than I really open the floor to newbies, but also people that have different perspectives. Something that Carlos said. But yes, be willing to learn and listen as well.
Totally. Hearing a theme of listen. Ayana, do you want to add on to that?
I think I'm going to be practically saying the same thing, just listening. Something that my sister and I often talk about is sort of our frustration with not being taken seriously because of our ages. And I feel as though sometimes among adults, there's a feeling that what younger people have to say is not important, that they've already heard it. But I believe that everyone's an individual and everyone brings their unique perspective. So that's not necessarily the case. And I think that's what I appreciate about the Commonwealth Seminar, because I was 16 years old when I took this class. And I was given an opportunity to contribute to the conversation and to have my voice heard. And that was very powerful. And even here, having this panel where all of us on the panel are young and older people are coming to support us and are listening to us. This is exactly what we're asking for, and it's very important for to us, and we really appreciate it. So I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Wing and to the Commonwealth Seminar for making a space for this to happen.
Yes, more events like this help us. They really do. I just to get another perspective. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this, but Dami, if you're willing to speak, could you also answer the question? Because, like I've been saying, like Dami works really close with me and we're about the same age. So just another, student perspective.
Well, see, I was kind of dying here because I'm just here like, damn, I want to say this so bad. And just like, no, calm down, Dami. It's okay. Well, there was one of the questions about listening and learning. I feel like Carlos and I have a lot of backlash on social media about how we're too young and that we don't know anything. I just turned 18, by the way. So I have my vote. I do have my vote. And it's like, no, you guys are too young. You guys don't know about politics. This is like, you guys shouldn't be voting at like till like 23 or whatever. And just like, can you just be quiet? Like I'm being taught government in school for a reason. And I feel like adults are two-sided in which they're like, well, you should have a say, you should talk. And then they go and they're like, well, no, just be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. And it's like it brings us down to the point where we don't want to say anything. So just sitting down and listening and understanding our perspective will really help. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes, I love that you're sharing the floor, Carlos. Amazing.
Why I share the
I
floor.
also
They are great. There are great people out there. But
Yeah.
We know that between the three panelists that are here, but just more perspective helps sometimes.
Yeah, that's totally amazing. Any last, words that any of the panelists would like to say to kind of close out this panel?
I think Shay wanted to say something.
Yes, Shay's from our seminar class. So Shay, I know that you are also, a young activist in I think you said in the chat, you're the youngest in your group. Do you want to share from that last question?
Yeah, of course. Sorry if I'm seeming like to intrude or anything.
You're not. You're not intruding.
Right, thank you very much. I guess one position that I actually see this is so I recently became like the vice chair of my city's Human Rights Commission, and it's like I typically always I'm just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it this year, maybe someone else can do it because I don't feel prepared to do so, or like, oh, so probably no one's gonna listen to me because I'm literally 19 compared to everyone who's like in their 40s. And I'm just but I feel like that puts me I see it as an advantage because not only do I have newer and more modern perspective on the issue, it's like you get to be like, okay, well, I'm representing, you guys may be representing like the older population, but I'm all representing the younger population who I guess like according like to the government are too young to voice their opinions. Like, they can't vote, especially those who can't vote or can't put any input because they're just simply too young to do so. So I guess like that's what I'm saying. But it is kind of hard when you're part of an organization that's like, I wouldn't say legit, but like something as big as like the city council or like the school committee. Like it's all, I feel like for me it was all fun and games to be like, yeah, I'm the youngest one, but when it came to like the Human Rights Commission or like the Democratic City community. I'm just like, I don't know if like they're gonna even hear my voice because it's something so important that involves everyone in the city, or like it in very like every decision we make impacts everyone who lives in the area. So I guess like there's also like, can these people trust me, someone who's the youngest, with all that responsibility? So that's all I have to say.
Yes, they can trust you.
Yeah.
To the point of like, oh, I'm sitting in this chair and I don't know what to do. That's literally everybody in every city council ever to have existed. Nobody knows what they're doing. And me and Dami probably know that a lot more here in Lynn. Like nobody has no idea what they're doing. But that's fine. I mean, yes, I guess, with, time there comes experience. But like it's very important that you represent a group of the youth, people that will be voting, people that think, that don't have an outlet. If I were, if I lived in where you live, Shima, where you would be the person I would go to say like, hey, I feel strongly about this. So, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of responsibility, but you were put on the chair for, X reason. So I believe that, even though I don't know you at all, I have a lot of trust that, you are definitely in the seat for the right reasons.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, if that is, that was such a powerful way to end this panel. I want to thank our panelists so much and also thank the audience for being here. I hope that it somehow inspired you in such a way.